On the weekend, I was having my morning coffee and reading a book as I do. I had the TV on mute and I see the word crisis plastered all over the screen. But this time, it's not the normal housing crisis or the rent crisis. It's far worse. We have some terrible stats on the murder rate for women in Australia, and in recent weeks, traumatic events have transpired to put this crisis as the number one issue on our news feeds. I don't want to try and deflect from this particular issue because it is horrible and it does need to be addressed, but I'm not the person to do that. Instead, I want to provide some commentary on why we're having all of these crises or crises. We have the climate crisis, and as a result we have an energy crisis. We certainly have a mental health crisis here in Australia. Some people would put forward the idea that we also have a race crisis. At least that's what was being said in the run-up to the Voice referendum.
When we're facing inflation that is so high, people are at absolute breaking point.
There's also other things. Potentially an economic crisis is around the corner. Obviously everyone's feeling a lot poorer at the moment. In my opinion, there's actually going to be a retirement crisis. This video is not meant to be an opinion piece because I'm certainly no expert here, but no one's talking about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts to see what they are in the comments. If you agree, disagree, or have a different angle here. I normally do videos on the property market, among other related topics, and the main thing that I pick up from the comments is that people want to blame one thing for the housing crisis. It might be our sky-high immigration policy, it might be negative gearing, they might blame the Libs or the Labor Party, and don't get me wrong, all of these things play a part, but I would say generally for things to get to crisis level, there are several factors at play. There are some things that are external. In other words, we as a nation have little control over. For example, war in other parts of the world or climate change. I'm more interested in the things that we can control, like how we respond to things like war or climate change.
The Defence Minister has made Australia's latest funding commitment for Ukraine personal.
Those things are easy for governments to sell us narratives through mass media. What's more important to me is things we can control as a nation, like housing policy or tax policy or immigration or violence against women. If you look at these four issues, it's evident that the government is not doing a good job at looking after the interests of the masses.
Disturbing new details emerging tonight about the court system leading up to her murder. Police warned a registrar the victim's ex-partner, Daniel Billings, was showing concerning behaviour, escalating towards the most disturbing conclusion.
At least one of the recently murdered women was done so by someone who was on bail. If anyone remembers the Jill Meagher case from 2012, her attacker was a repeat sex offender who was out on bail. There was a huge public outrage over this, and clearly things haven't been done to change anything here. The housing crisis, it didn't happen overnight. The crazy guy that went on a stabbing rampage in Bondi, once upon a time we locked those crazy people up. We're having all these crises because our governments are not doing enough to fix the problems. Let me put a couple of thoughts together on why. The vast majority of our politicians have surfed the wave of prosperity that we had in the last 30 years. The last decade or so actually hasn't been that prosperous. What that has been is keeping up appearances. That has been creating more money without creating any more actual value in the economy. There's a reason house prices are going up way faster than incomes. They are baking a larger pie and at the same time giving the poor a larger piece and at the same time taking a larger share of the pie. In my thoughts, this has been a large reason why the ruling class has made decisions that has led to these crises. They just want to make more money. These crises will continue to get worse because they all divide us. That's how governments can get away with such bad outcomes and still get voted in. Anyway guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. This topic for me is a little bit left field, but I think we need to have these conversations without going feral on people with differing opinions. At the end of the day, Australia, to me, is about people coming together. That's part of our identity. One could also actually argue that we have an identity crisis going on. What we need to do is go back and embrace those values which made this place a great place to begin with. Cheers.